have any close calls in the prison?
If you could have any superpower as a teacher, what would it be and why?
But yes, that was a good one at the time. Was my girlfriend's having a baby, so our kids would stand there and kind of salute the Chinese flag as it was raised. So it was incredibly nationalistic.
Shanghai.
Yes.
Was there any language or cultural misunderstandings? Andrew Tate.
Hello, Mr. Knighton. Welcome to our podcast, Open Book Podcast.
Well, thank
today,
you. It's a pleasure to be here, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you for the late invite, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, you had to step in because our old interviewee
Mr.
show
Caro,
up today,
yeah.
it seems.
Hey, look, these things happen. It's the
Very
time of the year.
tough.
People are unwell. But
Yeah.
here I am. I'm well and I'm here. Let's go.
Okay, let's get straight into the questions. All right, Tol, would you like to ask the first question?
All right.
Yeah.
I just want to first ask about your teaching experience. Is there any particular schools that are a bit unordinary that you've been to?
Cool. Well, do you know what? Most New Zealand secondary schools are pretty similar, I guess, in terms of doing something a little bit different. I spent a couple of years at the Central Regional Health School. So if you were or weren't aware that in New Zealand there are 3 regional health schools that support students who for various reasons can't go to a regular school, whether it's mental health, physical health. Interesting space, which I've talked to a few of you guys about before, was the youth justice space, so working with young offenders. So in terms of outside of the ordinary, outside of, I guess, a traditional New Zealand secondary school, such as Waiheke High School, that would probably be my most unusual in New Zealand. And I also spent a year in China, in Shanghai, teaching Year 5 and 6's English. So I was a primary school teacher for a year, and that was unusual, but it was a cool experience. And
can you tell us about what it felt like teaching in the setting of the sort of prison, you could say?
Yeah, so Te Arere Tonga is a youth justice facility based in Palmerston North, and when I used to go up and visit there, my job was a lot to do around operations and systems, so I'd go in and support the teachers in that space, but the actual physical space would involve me turning up at the address, and I had a key fob that would get me through the first gate. I had a second key fob that would get me through the second gate, and then I'd park my vehicle, and then I'd walk through to basically the operational office of the youth justice facility. And that from there I had to punch in. There was 4 different safes, one for Rangatamariki, one for the health school, I think one for the Ministry of Justice, and one for the Ministry of Health, because these are the 4 different organisations that operated out of there. And I'd put in the PIN number. I'd have to drop off my wallet, my phone, my keys, my general keys, so they all went in the safe, and then in the safe I had a little key hook that I would take off, which then gave me the keys to get through various doors into the teaching and learning space. So they were really, really strict on what you could and couldn't take into the space. So you had to drop basically anything that could be used as a weapon or anything that could be used to communicate with the outside world, such as a cell phone, had to stay sort of locked down in the safe, and then I'd be able to go through to the teaching spaces. So
it really is a bit of a prison.
It absolutely was a prison. So these young people who were in there were basically, they were on remand. So what that means is that they have been arrested and they have been deemed as not fit to be able to return to their abode. So basically they might be a risk if they were to be able to return home. And so they are held in youth justice before they have a trial date, before they're effectively charged. They're arrested but not charged. So
what were the ages?
Ages roughly, youngest would be about 14, and the oldest would probably be 19, almost 20. Now, to get in there, it's not the kind of kids who steal a single car. It's the kind of kids who've stolen like 20.
Repeat offender.
Repeat offender. So to get there, you your offending has escalated to such a point where the courts and the police have basically said, you are no longer able to be in your own home or wherever you live. We're going to basically put you into this facility. Now, they might they'll go to court, And then they might be returned home on bail conditions. So it might be ankle bracelets, etc. If they're old enough, in the 18 space, they might be charged and effectively will be going to a full adult prison. So that was probably the more extreme end for some of those young people. But most would be bailed, and then their charges would effectively be some kind of reparations, or they have to, home detention.
Yeah, and I assume those schools are probably getting more busy now that the government's changed their policies around.
Well, potentially. I mean, the big thing that happened, I'm still in touch with some of my colleagues down there, was recently you may have heard about the boot camps. So the new government, so that came out of Te Rere Ata Tonga. So basically the government came in, said, look, we're going to run this military-style camp for these young people, and that was that. So that's part of the school day for those people there now. And that's a mixed prison, so it's boys and girls. So that always used to present an interesting dynamic. The other dynamic that would often change would be that if you had a core of mob-affiliated young people or a core of nomads-affiliated young people, and so the gang culture, that became really difficult sometimes to manage the space and rotating students around various learning environments, because often if they had an opportunity to interact and bash each other, they often would. Some of the stuff it's pretty full on in there. It's, the Oranga Tamariki staff are there to keep everybody safe. So if there were young people kicking off, the OT staff, they were big boys generally, and some pretty strong girls too. They would make sure that those young people did not hurt each other, and they did it quickly and effectively, if you can read between the lines.
Talking about them hurting each other, did you have any close calls in the prison?
No, not at all. So very, very safe. I didn't feel unsafe at all. I did have, you do wear a special beeper. So basically it's like almost an alarm. You strap it to your belt. And if at any time you do feel unsafe, you can just click a button, and basically everyone sort of
sends off a signal.
It comes to you. That was sorry, I forgot to mention that. With the other thing with the key, I had to make sure that was attached to my belt so that the key could never be taken off me.
Yeah,
so
of
it was
course.
always attached. That was there's a few protocols that we had to learn when we were in that space. But felt safe. My teaching there was I did a lot of digital literacy. So for my guys, we were doing touch typing, we were navigating Google Docs, the very basic stuff like how to create a document, how to do emailing, how to run a very, very simple spreadsheet. Just some really basic sort of life skills. Because a lot of these young people who are there have effectively left education sort of maybe 10, 11, 12. Like they've just, their life circumstances mean they've just stopped going to school. Often from inner city schools, and therefore there hasn't been a great deal of wraparound. So these guys just don't have the skills to effectively be part of the adult world.
All right.
Moving it on a little bit.
All good.
Your time in Shanghai.
Yes.
Was there any language or cultural misunderstandings that led to any funny moments? Or
I think so. It's hard not to. China's such an incredible country, and still quite insular in terms of the way that they think about themselves and the way that they do things. So my wife and I, we went over in 2011. And we joined the World Foreign Language School. And what that meant was we were teaching basically humanities or topic, and we taught the English, and we did a bit of science, and that was effectively our day. So the other part of the day for those kids was they would have Chinese trained teachers come in and do the Mandarin lessons, the mathematics lessons, and physical education, weirdly. And the reason for the maths particularly was that they felt that they were better at maths than the Western world, which possibly fair. And so they didn't trust the Westerners to teach that element of it. So that was good. I mean, the day would start off with we'd all go out onto the main playground. We'd line up, and then basically from almost the balcony of the school, which was about on the 5th floor because it was a 6-story building, they would play this crazy, very, very sort of traditional Chinese music, and we do these kind of feng shui exercises, and the kids are all in these lines, and then of course it would end with the national anthem, and the kids would stand there and kind of salute the Chinese flag as it was raised. So it was incredibly nationalistic, and that just was always interesting from a Western point of view, where you're taught to sort of not necessarily question your allegiances, but at least have a critical lens on things that you do and you think. Whereas this is how you will do things. So that was interesting. Socially, outside of school, really cool place to be. Shanghai, incredible expat community. So what that means is a whole bunch of people from all around the world. I ended up playing football for a team called the Anzacs, and we played in the second division of the international league that was there in Shanghai. And lots of teams were affiliated to the countries they were from. So the Anzacs were obviously the Australian New Zealanders. And then there was a Dutch team called L'Orange. There was the Krauts, which was the German team. And there was all very sort of, so that was really fun. So that would be on a Saturday morning. I'd go out to the northeast of the city. There'd be a couple of pitches, and we'd play football. Really, really bitterly cold in the winter, and then we'd head back to the city for an afternoon of celebrating a win or commiserating a loss.
Yeah. So you're also a freelance application developer?
Absolutely.
Have you ever been tempted to create a teacher's revenge app that gives students surprise pop quizzes?
I haven't quite got to thinking about that. No, the application I do is very much helping schools.
Tell us about your application app.
I can tell you about it. Yeah, so my friend and I, Jake, we developed an app called Parrot. It's used in about 60 secondary schools across New Zealand. Wow. And basically what it does is help schools communicate attendance. It does a whole bunch of other cool stuff as well, but the main use is those annoying emails that I send you guys when you have unexplained absence.
Tell us what Parrot means.
Parrot means progress and attainment online tool.
Okay, cool. And how many schools have you sold this application to?
So we have a subscription base. So we do an annual charge to schools, and like I say, we have got 60-something. About 66 secondary schools in New Zealand, South Island, North Island, using it. And it works off the back of KMAR, which is the student management system that lots of secondary schools operate.
You reckon you can go international with this piece?
It works off FileMaker Pro. So if a school's management system uses FileMaker, then yes, but mostly in New Zealand. In fact, I think New Zealand is the world's biggest user of FileMaker Pro purely because we run our student management systems off it.
Yeah.
So just a database.
Are you wanting to expand this application to different countries, or?
No, keep it. Well, at the moment, New Zealand, there's 300 New Zealand secondary schools that use KMAR. So we've got, a sixth of those. If we got somewhere close to 100 schools, so a third, we'd be pretty happy. It's cool. It's a pretty low intensity application. Once it's sort of set, you can sort of set and forget it, which is a really cool business model because it means basically my job is to chase up invoices and my friend Jake does the development stuff.
Wow.
What is like some surprising things that you've learnt from teaching at these like prison and international schools?
I think the surprising thing is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're overseas or you're teaching in a youth justice facility, that education for those who engage with it can be life-changing. So if you're in China and suddenly you're exposed to English language learning and your English is far more efficient than someone else, you've suddenly got a whole bunch of opportunity open to you because you've got this dual language. In the youth justice space, if you engage with education, you have more opportunities should you and when you leave that facility to do other things. So that would be... And then the same with any secondary school is that the people who enjoy school the most are the people who put in the work and the effort. Like if you get involved with everything you can at school, you are likely to have a better school experience and use that in the future.
Mm.
Fair enough. Jeez, you seem to be
quite a lot. Yeah,
very passionate about education.
Very passionate about education.
It's my vocation. It's my career.
What gives you this passion?
What gives me this passion? That's a great question. I think that I did have a really good secondary school. In fact, I've had a good school experience my whole life. When I lived in the UK, before we moved out to New Zealand, had this awesome humanities teacher, which is effectively social sciences in New Zealand. His name was Mr. Hart, and he just had funny guy. He was strict, but he was funny with it, and he loved American football. And when I was about 13 and 14, I loved American football, and it was right when the Denver Broncos were being successful. John Elwood was the quarterback, and Mr. Hart had lived in Denver. He'd done a teacher exchange thing, and him and I talked about American football, and that was just really cool. He was also a geography teacher, and I really liked geography. When we moved to New Zealand, I went to Kapiti College before I taught there.
Yeah.
And again, just had a good experience. I got involved in some drama stuff. I did Shakespeare in schools when I was in year 11. I did the production kind of stuff when I was year 12, 13. I played rugby. I played badminton. I got on the prefect team when I was year 13. So just tried to do everything and fill up that time. So my experience of school was always, when you're in those spaces and you get those relationships with teachers, it kind of helps you in other spaces because you've always got someone to kind of have a yarn to.
For sure, yeah.
You know that kind of experience where you want to have a chat with the teachers. You think the teachers are interesting. They have things that you want to know. So that was it. So then, so I left school. I went traveling for a year. I was bricklayed for a year. And the bricklaying was when I was like, I don't want to be a bricklayer. So I went to university. I had the opportunity because I'd made the most of school. I set my qualification to go and start university and started a teaching qualification.
Whoa.
Yeah.
If you had anything, because obviously a lot of students and children nowadays are influenced by a lot of people online. And sometimes it's not always for the better. Like, I know there's a big movement with like Andrew Tate and people like that. But if there's like one thing that you had to say to them, just, to focus on or something like that, what would it be?
Oh, I think it's be involved. I think that's come across. Just get involved in your own education. Don't be a passenger. Yeah. Don't let it sort of pass you by, because I think if you do, you'll experience some bitterness later when you think, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd tried that, or the sort of the extreme of that is school never supported me. I never had the opportunity, and you probably did. You just maybe didn't take it at the time. So not even always do your best or be excellent. Just get involved, because it's really is such a short period of your life, particularly year 9 to 13, right? It's 5 years, and you get to work for the next 45 at least. So having a really good secondary school experience, doing the extracurricular, giving it a go is a really important thing.
Where do you think you would be if you didn't become a teacher?
Oh, that's a good question.
Bricklayer?
No, bricklaying was not for me. I didn't enjoy the bricklaying. I like plastering. I like tiling. Those are two things I quite enjoy doing.
Is that what led you to your profession in bricklaying?
No, bricklaying was just an opportunity that someone came up and said, and it wasn't really. I was labouring. I never really got to the bricklaying part. But if I wasn't a teacher, I'd probably do something with my hands, like I say, tiling, plastering. Yeah. But it's really tricky to say, would I be able to do that for 45 years? I think the beautiful thing about education is that once you are a teacher, you have the opportunity to move around, go overseas, travel within your own country, and live in various different places. And schools are different. So school is different. So you can go to one school and the students will be different to a school in a different place. So at least I know for the remainder of my working life, if I choose to keep kind of going to various different places, that
it's a very reliable job, like especially
massively. I mean, you've got a consistent income. It's not a massive income, but it's a consistent income, and it's okay. I'm not going to be a rich man, but I won't. I will always be able to put food on the table for my family. So that's kind of the good thing about education is it sounds cliche, but it is different every day, but it can also be different through different periods of your life.
All right. Well, before we wrap up this podcast, we have two more questions for you.
Cool.
Actually, all right?
Yep.
If you could have any superpower as a teacher, what would it be and why?
Oh, okay. My son asks me this all the time, actually, and it's probably a different answer each time. I think I would like the power of telekinesis. And the reason I want telekinesis is that I think it'd be just really cool to be able to move things around the room with your mind.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Like, Well, I mean, like, short invisibility or something would be cool, like being able to fly. But just imagine, like, you like pick up some rocks and like make yourself fly. You know.
Yeah, or be able to close the laptop screen
close
if
the
I know
laptop
you're gaming on it.
Exactly.
Well, you can just, like,
as a
have
teacher,
mind
yeah, that'd be
reading
pretty
them.
cool.
Yeah.
You can just like mind read them and just know what they're doing at all times. So
Yeah, maybe intrusive. Is that telekinesis or is that telepathy? I don't know.
Maybe
That's all good.
telepathy.
What's the most creative excuse you've heard from a student who didn't do their homework?
I think the best one I had, and it wasn't at this school, but it was a senior student who told me that their girlfriend was having a baby. And I know, and I was like, so then, you have to accept that at face value at the time, but then, of course, you do a little bit of digging and it's just complete, utter fabrication. But yes, that was a good one at the time, was my girlfriend's having a baby, so I didn't do the homework. And I was like, man, you're 17, what the is going on? But yes, that was probably the best one.
All right, that's us. Thank you for coming on our
No worries,
podcast,
guys.
Open Book
It's been a
Podcast.
pleasure.
Yep, appreciate it.
And sorry for the short notice.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I thought it was good. Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
I feel like on Gucci Mane in 2006. All these diamonds.